I'm so excited to see you guys all here. And before we dive in, I want to know, where are you joining from? So comment in the chat. I'm pretty sure we have people from all over the world. Pittsburgh, what's up? Australia, no way. Hey, Dane. San Diego, India. Oh my God. Colorado, LA, Memphis, Tennessee, Vancouver. Woot woot. Maryland. I send that like such a Canadian. KL. Oh, that's awesome. I lived in KL for 3.5 years.
That's Kuala Lumpur to people who are not.
Cool kids call it KL. Brooklyn, Pakistan. Oh my gosh, so exciting. Zambia. Awesome. People literally, oh, Brazil. Oh, this is so cool. You guys are just making my night. I'm so thrilled to have you all here. You can see my buddy Zach in the webinar, but I want to take a second to just talk a little bit about Zach. And first of all, he's an incredible copywriter. I've known this guy for about 10 years. We met at Traffic and Conversion Summit in 2010 down in Austin. And you know, when you just meet those people that you're like, oh, you're one of my people. We have so much fun just like psyching out on psychology and marketing and copywriting. And he trained as an actor and singer in New York City, which is so cool. I love the fact that so many copywriters have these like diverse backgrounds. He lived for 4 years as a Zen Buddhist monk. Those of you who've watched our YouTube video, you know that, which I think is just really an incredible thing about you. He wears many hats now, though. He is working in the online marketing space. He's actually returned to dating and relationship coaching, which he used to do, and essentially trains men and women on skills like body language, conversation, and so on, just to become more confident. And over the past 10 years, he's written copy both for himself and for his clients that sold millions of dollars worth of products and services. So he's got a lot to say about copywriting, and I'm so glad to have you join me here on this webinar. Zach, welcome.
Thanks, Alex.
So before we dive into what we're going to be covering tonight in this webinar, Zach, I just want to ask you, because as I mentioned when I introduced you, your background is very diverse. You're an incredible copywriter, but how did you get into copywriting, and how did this whole journey start for you?
Started with, I never wanted to be a copywriter. That was not a goal that I chose for myself. It just started because I had a business with some friends, and we were coaching men and women in dating skills, conversation, body language, that sort of thing.
Right.
And it just very quickly became apparent that even though we had a great service and we were helping a lot of people, that the next part of that was that I had to find a way to communicate that to people in a way that made them want to buy. Mm-hmm. So I just went down the rabbit hole of marketing and copywriting and realized this was the best leverage point for growing that business. And I spent a few years writing and rewriting the copy and writing promos for that. And after a while, then I sort of got known in a couple of different industries, especially the dating, relationship, sex advice space, and also productivity, personal development, as someone who could write copy that converts, and people started paying me to write copy for them. And that just was an amazing skill. I realized that if you can write copy, which is basically sales in print, you'll never be out of money. I can always, if something goes wrong, I mean, I might not be able to get it tomorrow necessarily, but right now, if I had crashed my car or needed to get a new car, I could go and ask, someone in my industry, because I'm known, and say, hey, do you need a sales letter or a video sales letter? And, get a chunk of cash in, or I could launch something of my own. And it's really now just become a matter of what am I most passionate about, and what am I most interested in promoting, what I want to sell.
I think it's so cool to look at that evolution, just hearing your story. And many of you watching probably know my story of learning copy sort of out of necessity, but also, I mean, strategically. Like it was something I quickly realized was a highly sought after, highly paid skill set. And also the mediums and the channels come and go, right? I mean, we were talking about this the other day. It's sort of like drop shipping, that's a great business, but it has a shelf life in the sense that it's more of a medium and a method of selling, as opposed to the foundational concepts of persuasion and selling that will apply whether you're selling yourself, whether you're selling products that you sell, whether you're trying to sell other people's products. And it's such an incredible skill set. And I know I'm so happy to be able to share this with sort of everyone in my community, but also hear different backgrounds like yours on how it all started. And I think a lot of people on this webinar and in my community are very much on that journey of saying, okay, I think I really want to move forward with copywriting, whether it's copywriting for my own products and services or selling other people's or freelancing. And so, you know, copywriting all the way. And I just want to point out that Tayeb said, it's 6 a.m. here in Pakistan and I waited all night for this webinar. Thank you. That is amazing. And I forgot to cheers you guys. I said I would have wine. So I don't know if you're drinking tea or wine. Zach, I don't know if you have anything. Let's do like a worldwide cheers
Let's have
to kick
some
off the webinar.
GHB in a cup here.
Cheers. Here's what we're going to be covering today in this webinar. I'm really, really excited to get into this because Zach and I have been geeking out on kind of what to share with you guys. And really, we're going to be talking about the only 3 things, the only 3 real rules that you need to know to write copy that sells and really convert, whether that's clicks, leads, sales. And these things are true no matter what you're selling. So if you're selling a product or a service, if you're selling a software, even if you're selling yourself, these are the foundational principles of conversion and persuasion. And we're going to go through each one, and then we're going to share some specific examples, techniques from multiple use cases and niches. And we're presenting them in a very particular order, and we'll kind of explain why that is. But just know that the concepts that we're sharing, there is sort of a method to the madness, and these are the 3 things that need to be considered. And so I'm going to give a quick rundown on what those are. The first is big promise. You can say big benefit, but essentially you need to know what the big promise is for your reader. And Zach's going to go through that in detail and talk about really how you identify what that is. He's going to talk about the types and the tiers of benefits. So getting a little bit deeper into that. We're going to revisit the whole concept of feature versus benefits, because that, again, is very, very important in your marketing. Next, we're going to talk about believability, because it doesn't matter how great your promise is, right? If your reader or viewer doesn't believe you, then they're not going to buy it, right? And so I think this is something that a lot of people forget, is they go, I'm telling people that I'm going to make them money, yet they're still not paying me for it. And I think, Zach, you've given this example before that, you know, if someone believed that they could pay you, you know, say $500 and make 5,000, there's absolutely no reason why they wouldn't do it. So the problem is really getting people from your big promise to actually believing that it's achievable. So that's the second concept we're going to be talking about. And the third is attention, which seems obvious, but it's so important, because again, it doesn't matter how big or awesome your promise is or how believable you make it. If nobody's seeing your shit, ain't nobody gonna buy from you. And it's as simple as that. So we're gonna be talking about those 3 things. And then at the end, we're gonna actually be doing some live Q&A, some critiques. We're gonna answer some of your questions, try to really kind of get down into the nitty gritty of what we can help you guys with. And if you have any copy related questions about what we're talking about, please, you know, get that in your mind about what you want to ask at the end, or any challenges we can help you work through. And then, of course, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to put it in the chat or ask it in the question box. We can't promise that we'll get to all of them. Obviously, we want to make sure we kind of stay on track and on time, or else we'll be here till our 6 a.m. But one last thing before we dive into the content is I would love to hear from you guys on what niche you write in, or what niche you want to write in, because that might help us really gauge some of our examples and, you know, case studies that we might be able to share with you, or just make sure that we're tailoring what we're sharing with you guys to our audience. Cannabis. Oh, that's an interesting niche.
Oh, nice.
Who else? Social impact, health, wellness, lifestyle. Awesome, Suzanne. Okay. Parenting. Cool. Personal development. Yep. Productivity. Cool. Yeah, definitely have some things for that. Real estate, yoga. Okay, cool. Pet services, e-commerce brands, music. So we got like full gamut of niches across the board. Don't really have a declared niche. I know a few areas I could write about. Cool. Well, hopefully this could help you get maybe a little bit more clarity on what niche you might be interested in writing for, if you don't have the answer to that. But thank you for sharing that. That's great. We might come back in and ask you guys some specific questions if you do. But I think we're ready to dive into sort of the content. So as I talked about, number 1, big promise. Zach, I'm gonna let you take it away, and then I'm just gonna, you know, be here to jump in and add my little peanut gallery comments and examples and things into what you talk about.
Great. So we're starting with the big promise, because this is where I, as a copywriter, and Alex, we've had conversations about this. This is where we start for every marketing piece that we write, and taking the time to get this right and really nail it down, and not think that, oh, I know what that is because I've been in the industry for ages. This really makes the rest of the work flow, and you end up centering everything else you do in the copy around this. So there are really two kinds of benefits that you need to consider. The first is the benefit of your product or service. So we have here wedding videos. We have, finance, insurance, yoga studio, real estate, productivity. So you want to think about whether you have a program or it's coaching or it's whatever it is, you're going to work on the big promise of that. But each piece of marketing also has a big promise, and it's related, but it may or may not be exactly the same as the promise of your product or service or solution.
Right. I think to say that another way too, because I know we were talking about this earlier, and just to not, confuse anybody with the difference between, the benefit of your overall solution or what we call like the USP, which is obviously very important in branding and copywriting for you as either a writer for your own products or writer for somebody else, to really have that in mind is what is the overall brand promise? What is my USP? The ultimate goal that I help people do, but then what is I guess you could even call it the core goal of whatever sales piece you're writing. And so, thinking of it as if you're writing an ad, you have the benefit of the end product that you're getting people to buy, but you need to be able to guide them through that story and know that the goal of the ad is to get the click to the sales page and not necessarily to sell the product. I know you're going to get a little bit more into that, but that can help me determine the difference.
It basically helps to keep in mind that sales is a process, and people don't go from seeing an ad to buying within a few seconds, and where does each marketing piece fit within that process. So again, just picking from some here, I see wedding videos. So the big promise is memories you'll cherish forever, beautifully shot, don't miss out. You only have one chance to get this right. And that's the promise of the wedding videos. It's not well articulated. If we spent some time, we'd nail it down to a real concrete statement, but people might not be ready to click and buy and get a wedding. So you might create a piece of marketing that is 6 things to look for in a wedding videographer, or, videos versus pictures, which one is better, and you have that piece of marketing, which isn't saying, it doesn't push the big benefit. It gives them an answer to a question that they might have. And then that gives you a chance. So obviously, 6 things to look for in a videographer: that they should be local, and you should feel comfortable with them. And, they should articulate their vision. They should be flexible. Do they shoot videos to, see that their portfolio, is it similar to what you're looking for? Style. I don't know what they are because I'm not in that business. But then at the end, of course, you get to say, these are the things you should look for. Go out and, interview people. And by the way, if you're looking for someone who has all 6, you can, give me a call. And that's one marketing piece. So you're not necessarily going to be pushing your big benefit of your product. I hope that makes sense. Give me a hell yeah if that makes sense, or a no, not clear if it's not in the comments.
Totes my goats. Yes, okay. Thanks. Awesome.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And one other thing too, and I know we're totally very off track, but this is like a little other, I guess you could call it like tidbit of wisdom if you're really thinking about building out a sales funnel and your end product. And again, we're gonna use wedding videos. So your example is great to use because that is the core end product, but your landing page to get interest is not, like you said, is not going to be, hey, get a wedding video, because it's like, oh, you want people to jump into bed with you right away. Whereas if you're telling people the 6 things you should look for in a videographer, or else risk losing your most important day of your life forever. Here are the things you should look for. You're educating, you're adding value, but you're also building a bigger need for the person who needs your services. And so if you are giving away a free lead magnet or something like that, and I know we're getting into this sort of like the bridge benefit, what is the smaller benefit that actually creates a bigger need? It's a smaller benefit that creates a bigger need, which ultimately sets up your end sale better.
And again, we talked about this before. I used to have a slide, which we won't share here because it's pretty
you can paraphrase it and more.
It's pretty crass. But this sort of thing happens in dating apps all the time. my female friends will tell me that guys will just be like, hey, want to go on a date? Or like, do you want to, something more direct? And that's not the point of the opening message. The point of the opening message is to start a conversation. Once you have the conversation, it's to see if there's a connection. If to see if there's a connection, there's let's meet up, or let's get on the phone or text or whatever. And then you meet up, and then you, et cetera, et cetera. And I see this, we're kind of leaning on this point a little bit, because every time someone asks me to critique their copy, this is probably one of the biggest things I see, is they're trying to sell their product from the subject line of an email or from the headline of their thing. Clear. Everyone's got it. Okay, cool. So there's two kinds of benefits. People want to either move away from pain, so that's, you want to avoid a threat, or they want to move towards pleasure, and that's gain and opportunity. And there's no formula for knowing, which is the sort of best way to go. And ideally, if you're still choosing a niche, ideally you're including both of them, but not all of them are relevant for all niches. I mean, if you're selling e-commerce stuff and you're selling shoes, unless it's a shoe that solves a specific problem, like bunions or, ankle problems or something, you're not really selling a solution necessarily. You're just, it's pleasure, the most comfortable shoes you've ever owned, or, best shoes for travelers or whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, Zach, I'm thinking at the end of this section, then we can show the slides with the examples, and then we'll do them kind of all at once and kind of pick through them.
That's a great idea.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
And so the two types of benefits, and this is something that I think, I love how Jim said, satisfy needs, scratch an itch. Exactly. I mean, you really have to think and get very clear on what your benefit is. And we're going to talk about the importance of having one singular benefit in just a second. But I like, and many of you have maybe seen my feature to benefit converter, but a lot of marketers and copywriters, as they're just getting started and kind of getting their wheels greased with writing copy, it's really easy to think of the features. It's really easy to tell you all the things that a product has. So, it's got 12 modules, 12 workout exercises, and it's like, great. So does every other workout, DVD or whatever. Or it's got batteries included. It's like, okay, well, what exactly does that mean? Or 1 terabyte hard drive. And so there's 5 questions that I'm going to revisit really, really quickly, which will help you really take a feature that might be your product or something that you're selling and turn it into a benefit, which is a really good starting point to really filter through what all of your benefits are. And, Zach will talk about this in a second, but you almost need to do a brain dump of all of the different types of benefits that your product can offer, and then figure out what is the one that you're really pushing. And so the 5 questions, and if you want to write this down, yeah, Jim, a really fast car does 0 to 60 in 6, pushes you. Yeah. It's like, what is the benefit? So
I can address that in a second. It pushes you in the back seat, but no one's out there saying, I wish I had a car that pushed me into the back seat. Right. So there's no benefit to me of being pushed into the back seat, but go faster than your neighbor's car is a benefit that speaks to a lot of people, even though they wouldn't like to admit it, but it's, hey,
Yeah. And it is unfortunate to think it really is, people are very, other versus self motivated and thinking about, okay, yeah, how really does that set that apart? Someone doesn't buy a car because it goes 0 to 60 seconds, right? People buy a car because of what that 0 to 60 seconds makes them look like. And so, I'll give you this example of the 5 questions and then the 1 terabyte hard drive example. So the 5 questions that you ask to turn this feature into a benefit is, why is this feature notable? So why is it important to have a 1 terabyte hard drive? The simple answer to that is more storage space, right? So you can back up stuff. The second question is, what problem does this feature solve? So if I have more storage space, the problem that it solves is that no lost files, right? Okay, well, what is the core pain point associated with that problem of lost files? Well, it's loss of memories, right? All of a sudden you're like, you can kind of feel it. Like, we've all been there where our computers crashed or something happened and we lost our vacation memories or something like that, right? And so that leads to the next question of, when does this matter the most? So if I'm losing files, when does this matter the most to me as, you know, as let's say it's in my life, I can't say baby's first steps. If I was a mom, that would probably be a pretty big one. But vacation memories, right? I go to Italy once a summer, once a year with my friends or my boyfriend, and we take all these incredible photos, and all of a sudden gone, wiped out. I don't have those photos, right? That would be really crappy. The next question is, why does your customer need this? So peace of mind, trust, right? That's actually when you're taking a feature, thinking of it through the pain into the benefit, of never forget your vacation, or never forget the day your child took their first step. So all of a sudden you're taking what can be kind of a boring feature that people think is what people want, and it's actually nothing to do with that, because they could go find that on Amazon in 10 seconds, a 1 terabyte hard drive, if that's really what they wanted, right? So how the feature to benefit really makes them feel like, this is the person that gets me and understands my needs, I'm going to buy from them.
Nice. I love that. And I love, because it's such an unemotional thing. A 1 terabyte hard drive sounds so kind of banal.
Yeah.
But when you think about it as, that's not a 1 terabyte, that's your memories of your children.
Yeah.
You know?
Didn't you say something to Perry Belcher, who's a mutual friend of ours? He said, someone said you have to remove ego out of it.
That was Kevin Nations was saying,
Nations.
You have to take your ego out of, people don't want your solution. They want if they could get the problem solved without you, they would.
Yeah.
And so your product or service is an unnecessary, well, it's necessary, but it's instead of talking about yourself and look at all the great things I have, they just want the problem gone.
What does this mean for me? Yeah. And Harmeet asks, what's the 5 questions? I said them quickly, but what I'll do is when I send out a recap of this webinar, I'll make sure to include the link to my feature to benefit converter for everyone on the webinar, so you guys can have that and use it to convert all your features into benefits. No problem.
What I like about that example as well, the 1 terabyte hard drive one, is there's, it's important to create a sense of urgency. Like, why buy it now? And I think we've all had that, I get a thing that says, like, you haven't backed up your thing for, 12 days, 15 days, 2,000 days, 3,000 days. Yeah, exactly. And you say every day, you're like, oh yeah, I got to get on that. I got to get on that.
Yeah.
And so I think a series of ads that has people say, last week I said I was going to back up my hard drive,
and then it crashed. Murphy's Law. It's always
that
like,
illustrates that you have to do this before it's too late. It's too late. You can't wait till your computer crashes to then back it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, yeah. So we'll continue.
So let's move on to talk about, we've mentioned this a bit, but like one focused singular benefit, because I think in a lot of niches, I know in personal development, there's a lot of benefits to a lot of these programs that you could buy, right? But, having just one is so important.
One that you build around. Yeah. And it's not that you never mention the others, but let's say meditation, for example. Well, there's health benefits, there's, insight, there's peace, there's anger management, there's all these benefits. And so for each marketing piece, you really just want to focus on one of those things. And the way that I do this is I have a running document in Google Docs I have a column for fears and frustrations and a column for wants and aspirations surrounding this solution. So if it's in dating for men or dating for women, and what are their biggest fears and what are their biggest frustrations, and how specific can I get with those? And you keep that document, and you can pull from it at various points, and you can go back to it. And you're going to start with your assumptions. You're going to say, well, maybe I think this is one of the biggest fears. And, if you're talking directly with clients, you'll find out maybe that's not the case, or you'll run a marketing campaign and say, wow, this, the biggest thing that I thought that they wanted is not exactly what they wanted. But I find that when you list them out and you just, as an exercise, sit there, you'll start to kind of prime your brain to think, to look for them more and to think of them more. And then one will pop out. You'll be, if you're in insurance and you're talking to a client and he'll say something like, I just wish I'd done this sooner, just wish I'd had the foresight. And then you're like, that's regret. That's one of the biggest fears. That's one of the,
And
you have something
sometimes
to
the
say?
best way to get this information is to survey your audience. I mean, a lot of the people, maybe the people even on you guys on this webinar, when I started building my marketing list, my email list, I really wanted to know. I didn't have anything to sell right away, and still don't. And so I wanted to know more about how I could support my audience. So I have a survey, and that was so eye-opening because I can think about what you might need and what might benefit you. And after seeing all the results, it was like, holy cow, this is what they're asking for. And now I know how to create a program and a product that can really help you and give you the needs or solve the needs that you have. And, someone at an event that I was at not too long ago had said the best thing for a copywriter is to actually have a product that people want. And sometimes the best way to have a product that people want is to ask people what they want. And so as you're starting to work with a new client, ask if they have, research on or have done surveys to their list. If not, that can be something that you recommend. I know I've worked with a lot of clients and said, can we do a quick poll? Can we email your list and just say, hey, what's the biggest challenge that you currently have right now? How can I help you? People will tell you what they need. And if you can then use that as, okay, I thought maybe the biggest benefit that I wanted to focus on was this, but people are telling me that this is what they need. Now I know how to help them. And so not being afraid to really get down into it with your audience and figure out what is that.
I would say yes, definitely ask them, but also sometimes you can test things to see how they are. So
Absolutely.
If you go for weight loss, and if somebody comes into the gym and the trainer sits down and says, what are you looking for? And they say, well, I really want my heart to be healthy and I want to be able to go up a flight of stairs without running out of breath. And then you say, okay. And then you're like, but you kind of want to look better naked. And they're like, yeah, of course, that's it. But that's the real reason, that's the, there are these things that people don't want to admit, they don't want to admit that they want and that they're after. And it's I find it's really good. Like as a copywriter, I'll often look at what is everyone else not saying, right? What is everyone else like afraid to say? Like just say the thing that is on everyone's mind. Yeah. And say it in a really clear, almost, sometimes, abrupt sort of way. We have an example of something like that, but people are shy about really being honest about what they want. So yes, listen to those things and you'll get an idea. But especially I think when it comes to, I think one of the best things, not best things, what everyone wants, but doesn't want to admit is they want to look better in the eyes of others. And I would say most purchases have something to do with that. The clothes you buy, cars, houses, self-help products, but people don't want to admit, well, I got the Porsche because I'm, I care about what my neighbor thinks. That's embarrassing. And that actually it's a status thing, but it lowers your status to admit that you're seeking status.
Right.
So you say it's about the trunk space and it's about but to know as a marketer,
it's never about the trunk space.
It's never about the trunk space. And I think I used this example on the YouTube thing, but Tesla is just the perfect example because Tesla is the sexiest car, around. Well, not necessarily, but in a lot of circles, it's a symbol of, wealth and status and these sorts of things. And having a Tesla is a symbol of status, but you get to say, I got it because I don't have to pay for gas. And I care about the environment and I don't want to be burning gas. And you have that cover story. But still, if you try and make, I remember a car designer saying you can't sell a car without sex. So if you try, like the Prius, for example, is also good on gas. Is the Prius, is that the hybrid one? Mm-hmm. But that was always about, that was very much about it's good for the environment, had no sort of sex appeal in that way. So yeah, so ask people, but also, should we move on?
Yeah, I want to be mindful of time. Let's move on, talk about the benefit tiers and the bridge benefits.
So ultimately, everyone wants to be happy, I hope, for the most part, even if they don't want to be happy or they're actively not being happy, it's so that they can find some sort of deeper happiness or fulfillment. And so how do we come up with a new benefit, right? You're selling insurance, or weight loss or whatever it is. And you say, well, lose weight. They want to lose weight. That's the real benefit. There are what I call bridge benefits, which are what they believe will lead to the ultimate benefit. So again, weight loss, boost your metabolism, achieve ketosis. And these are memes that are out there. These are beliefs that the market is educated, and some people know about ketosis, and they say, oh, if I could just achieve ketosis more hours of the day, then I would do better. I saw an article that said, put on lean muscle mass. And I already know that putting on lean muscle mass is going to speed up my metabolism, which is going to lead to weight gain. So you have these, finding love. Well, you need to meet a partner. You need to get their attention. You need to, there are all these bridges, right? Making money is, start a business, learn to sell, manage employees. There are all these bridges. And sometimes that's a great entry point for a new sales message is, something that they think, oh yeah, if I had that one piece, that would unlock the whole thing that I want.
Yeah. Well, and that plays into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is believability, because, oftentimes when you start with that single ultimate benefit, which is, usually, I've heard it said multiple times that it's either have sex, make money, lose weight. Like those are the three. That's all people care about and want, really, right?
Yeah. And have sex, also find love, like within a partner,
right,
that sort of thing.
Love,
but mate, make money.
Yeah. And I think that almost becomes unbelievable when you try to say something that says make money, and everyone's like, yeah, I've heard that before, right? And so coming up with those bridge benefits or bridge beliefs or whatever you want to call it that really gets people to buy into the benefit that they have a preconceived notion in their head will ultimately lead them to the goal. So starting your at-home copywriting business, boosting your metabolism, cutting out your sugar cravings. I mean, all of those things, right, are just benefits to losing weight that are a little bit more palpable to people, which I think is a really important point to make in that. And it's what you talked about, but just really, doing a brain dump and think, okay, if this is my ultimate, if this is the goal, what is it? And oftentimes we don't think about the ultimate goal first. Sometimes the first thing that'll come to you is, well, I'm going to teach people how to start a business. Well, then you need to ask why. What is the ultimate goal of people wanting to start a business? What is it that they want? And then come up with almost that pyramid of what is the ultimate benefit? What are the bridge benefits that lead to that? And then you can go even more granular of, okay, what do they have to do to get there? And that can really help you, create a pretty bird's eye view of the path that you want to take people through. So then
someone's asking here, just a second. So a bridge benefit is just something that seems achievable that my product is offering, kind of. Somewhat. It's basically what you have to know your clients, so you have to know your prospects, and you have to know what they believe already. And they are, building a business is not a single act that you can do in 5 minutes. It involves, choosing a niche. It involves coming up with a product or service. It comes up with all these sort of things. And then each one of those has multiple steps. And so sometimes as a benefit of a marketing piece, and in fact, I'll do this for an email sequence, is I'll come up with the 20, so if they ultimately want to find the love of their life, well, some people have to, just meeting somebody is a whole thing unto itself. And there are so many different ways that now you have 5 different, there's dating apps and approaching in public and through friends, and there are all these things. Each one of these is a bridge benefit. The ultimate benefit is usually pretty much make money, find love, lose weight. So
Barbie says, so top down marketing. In a lot of ways it is, but I think also in a lot of ways it's bottom up. It's not being as directly obvious in the sense that I'm going to help you, make money. Even though you are saying that, you're saying it in a way that you're saying, okay, I'm going to help you. Let's say it is to make money, and it's in starting a business. Well, what starting a business could mean anything. What does that mean? Does that mean start an affiliate marketing business, start a drop shipping business, open a brick and mortar bookstore, start selling lemonade on the side of the street? Like what does that mean? And so in my case, the more down version of that is start your at-home copywriting business and learn how to copyright, learn the skills that are ultimately going to help you build a business, which is going to help you make money. And so it's just really kind of spending some time thinking about that, because if you can, and maybe you even do draw a pyramid and go, okay, what is the top, and then work your way down. And then there's going to be a lot of, kind of side benefits and things that come out of that brainstorm, but it's going to make it really clear what is that ascension path. for.
And then you can use that for content marketing. If you have a blog or you have an email sequence, each one is a different piece of this.
That could lead to a different landing page.
That can lead to ultimately joining your thing. So
let's talk about, now I'm drinking my wine. You talk about the glass of wine test.
Right. So that's a good way to sort of come up with this. And we talk about this in the YouTube video, so we won't dwell on it. But it's basically it depends who your client is, whether it's the glass of beer or the glass of wine test. But it's when two friends get together and he says, "Oh, I've had a rough day. And what's going on?" He says, let's go get a beer. Let's go get a glass of wine." And they sit down and they get their glass of wine. And so the supporting friend turns and says, "Okay, what's on your mind?" The person says, I just wish, and then you fill in the blanks. You know, "I just wish I was more flexible. I just wish I could get past the third date without getting rejected. You know, I just wish I could, get that person's attention. Or I just wish I could lose the last 5 pounds." You know, that's a whole niche. The last 5 pounds is its own weight loss niche, I just wish I could get the habits. I just wish I had more self-control around food.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, and I think too, like I'll often see this in the personal development niche, but you get a lot of headlines that'll say, this one magic trick will help you lose weight, find the love of your life. And I know we're going to get a little bit more into how that really hurts your credibility and the believability factor of your copy. But nobody says, I guess if you're really having a hard time, like no one goes out for a glass of wine with a friend and goes, "I just wish I could, lose weight, make more money, find the love of my life." And maybe I guess if you were really having a hard time in all those areas, but it's always kind of the one thing. It's that thing that's keeping them up at night. It's the thing that's weighing on them. And I think that's such a great example of, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So if you can't write a headline that clearly communicates one benefit, or if you can't tell a friend over a glass of wine what it is that the product does or the service does that you just bought, I just wish I could lose that 5 extra pounds, then that is the perfect benefit or hook for what you're talking about.
I see a comment here from Mark Ling.
What's up, Mark?
That's Mark Ling. Mark is a very successful internet marketer. I co-own a business with him, and he is a brilliant copywriter in his own right, and there's multiple 7-figure businesses. And he tells a personal trainer client of his that he needs to sell the results, not the process, which I think is, he says, "Do you agree with that angle?" Absolutely. That's a great way to say it. They don't want the process.
Yeah. Well, and again, as copywriters, we get really obsessed with, I should say as business owners, like we get really obsessed with wanting to tell people the how in terms of every single step that our product does. And you absolutely have to sell the results. And if it's one singular result that is really, the thing that you help people solve with, of course, secondary benefits, then that's going to make your copy even more compelling. And I think too, this all goes into kind of what we're talking about, but the more credibility you have and the more believability you have in what you're selling, the more you really can just focus on the results. You don't need to explain a lot of, the left brain stuff that got you to that result, even though some people might want to hear it. And there's different ways that you can work that into copy for those who are interested in learning about it, but most people aren't.
A quick question from Chris here. How can you write converting copy when price is what people are after? So what you're talking about there is a commodity, which is there's tons of them. So, if you want to buy nails, little nails, it's just a matter of finding the place that has the cheapest nails. I don't know. I'm not a nail guy, so maybe there are things. The answer is I wouldn't get into a market like that, because it's just a race to the bottom of whoever can sell it the cheapest and have the best margins. Everyone's just selling for less and less and less.
Yeah. And I think
but often you can find one. Often that's the thing, is everyone's saying, if you're competing on price, it's not, you haven't found something that's unique about your product that makes people say, "Oh yeah, I would pay more to get that."
Exactly. It's
usually
like, it's
there
really
is
that
one
value price gap, because I think everyone will tell you that they want the lowest price, because if you ask someone, would you rather pay less or more for something? Obviously the answer is less. So if and that goes back to making sure that you're really getting into the mind of the consumer, because of course price and money is a concern, but as your job as a copywriter and marketer is to build up the value of what you're offering so that the price seems like a no-brainer and the price seems irresistible, which is harder to do, like Zach said, with a commodity like a nail, because you could say these are like super strength, never break or rust, aluminum, whatever. I don't know anything about nails, but there are ways that you still could be a premium product, but it is harder in a commodity.
And that's what we were sort of talking about this, but that's exactly it. You were saying a copywriter, the best thing they can have is a good product. If you have a product that's just as good as everyone else's. So I had to write an Amazon listing for a guy that sold ceramic knives, and he just had a generic ceramic knife. And I did a little research, and the factory that he got them from in China did this very special process. And he mentioned it on the site somewhere, like down below, that it's a fold and something. Anyway, basically what we came down to is that this is actually stronger than other ceramic knives. And a big problem with ceramic knives is that they break. So we just built the marketing around, this is the strongest that we know of. This is the strongest, and our, proof and believability, we'll get into that in a second, but here's how we know that. And did you know that these things tend to break and this one doesn't? And tripled his income, his income off of that overnight from just finding that, because he was selling it like a commodity, which is, everyone else is selling ceramic knives for this, so if I just do it a couple bucks cheaper. So
exactly.
Jim's saying price and quality go together. That's actually often it does. It's a signal of possibly better quality. And in fact, there are some like luxury watches, for example, where the price is actually a feature, because it's Rolex lowers their prices. They're not going to make more money because owning a Rolex says something about your income, and people want to signal that. And if everybody can own one, I don't want one anymore. So you're absolutely right that pricing.
Well, and tying a commodity, as long as you can tie it to a basic human need too, like with knives, for example, broken knife could mean cutting yourself, could mean, you want to keep your all your fingers. I don't know. There's ways
that's a good point. Behind that, there's some real pain and emotional stuff besides.
All you got to do is find a guy who lost a finger cutting with a ceramic knife, and you're good.
That's right.
We have one right here, ladies and gentlemen. So before we dive into the second factor, believability, let's just pull up some of those examples of ads that we found that have sort of the big promise element.
Good promises in? Okay, I might have to jump around a little bit here. So yeah, here we go. I share my screen.
I'm just reading some of your comments, so don't mind me, guys. I'm just making sure we.
Oops.
Yeah, Lala says, what are your personal feelings about the product or service you are writing for? Should we stick to the task or do what I'm paid for, but kindly give? Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I understand. I always say you want to write about something that you're interested in. However, I know that's not a luxury for everyone who's just getting started. When I was first starting my freelance copywriting business, I wasn't concerned about writing about something I was passionate about. But I really do think that it is something you want to consider, because what I have found is as you start writing in a certain niche, you really learn about the audience, you learn about the demographic, you learn about how to write in that niche, and your first few clients will really set the tone, or your first few projects will really set the tone for what you end up writing in. And it doesn't mean that you can't go across different niches. I know Zach has written for different niches, but I think it is something you want to consider. And I'm a big believer in, I don't write copy for anything that I don't personally believe would actually help people. So if someone approached me and it was like a bullshit offer, and we're just wanting to make money, I wouldn't feel good about doing.
Which happens a fair bit. There's a lot of people
that
happens a lot. I've had, how about this? I'm like, you just made that up.
Yeah.
Just to sell something,
Okay, thank you. I thought I was tripping. No, I mean, honestly, with any business, like, stick to your guns, stick to your gut. I'm a really firm believer that you know, if you can lead with integrity and honesty and do what feels right for you, you're going to naturally attract those types of people into your life and into your business. And so, you know, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't take on a project if you're not necessarily super interested in the subject matter, but if they're good people and they're selling things that actually help, then that's great experience. You can go for it. But always have that like end goal in mind of like, okay, what is the who do I want to be as a copywriter? What are the projects I want to work for? What businesses do I want to write for?
With that in mind, I mean, one of the ways that you can do that is, if you're just getting started with copywriting, don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job and say, I have to write this copy to make next month's rent, because that's where you start sacrificing integrity. Is my kids got to eat, and I don't really want to sell this thing, but someone's throwing money at me and I have to take it. So having it's a luxury to be able to say no.
Yeah.
And that's what, either that, or, and then once you have enough money, you have diverse streams and you have a bunch of, money coming in from different places, and now you can say no. Really helps. So very quickly
the
here.
Whole quit your job overnight. And I know that happens a lot, and it's kind of like this glamorous idea. And, I think, I started my business before I quit my job, and, there's something good about and graceful about doing it in a way that's smart.
Well, this, for example, this YouTube channel and this sort of thing, you have lots of income coming in from all these different sources. So you can do this the way you want it, and you never have to stoop.
Right.
And, if people are asking for something that they're like, yeah, but how do I, do this? And you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Because you got other things. So,
yeah.
Okay, here we've got.
Oh, sorry. Go.
So a few benefits, 3 unique veggies that fight. Sorry, my screen is blocked by my own video here, but can you read that?
Yeah, 3 unique veggies that fight abdominal fat. A surprising way that a few specific vegetables can actually stimulate the burning of abdominal fat. So, I mean, we don't need to look too closely at that to know what the singular benefit is, right? And exactly. I think that's. Can you go back a slide?
Yeah.
I think that's just really clear, right? It's to fight belly fat. We can talk about other kind of cool things that are used in this headline. Obviously, specificity, the 3 obviously is the word I'm looking for. It's an open loop, right? You want to know, like, what are these 3 veggies? I talk a lot about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to attention. But that's a clear benefit, big promise of that one.
The next one's really similar. 5 diet foods that can make you fat.
Yeah. So it's the opposite. It's what we were talking about, the avoiding, right? So with 2 types of benefits, it's towards the opportunity or away from the pain. And so those basically said the same thing, but this is obviously an away from.
Well, actually, sorry, you pointed this out because I showed you these and you're like, they're actually both away from belly fat. They're just a positive angle versus a negative angle.
That's right.
And then the next one is towards pleasure, right? Look good naked.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so kind of figuring out what when you're writing a headline, which way you want to go. And there's a lot of argument about this. Like, some people say pain focused headlines always work better. I honestly think it depends on your niche and your audience and what you test. And so I kind of have gone back and forth where I'll sometimes use more of the pain focused headline. Like, here are the things you have to avoid doing. Here are the things you shouldn't do, versus these are the things you should do to be happy or healthy or whatever. But yeah, those are great examples. I love that. Should we move on to believability?
I just have a couple more. We were talking about having one, this is cure all: headaches, neuralgia, cough, cold, sneezing, hiccups, gout, gonorrhea, diphtheria, damp lung, mumps, measles, whooping cough, tuberculosis.
Does it all.
The idea of it loses credibility, it loses believability. So centering around one helps. And I just like this. This is Unbounce, and they do a pretty good job. It's a software for designing beautiful landing pages that convert more. And just knowing this company, they spent a lot of time to come out with those 7 words. Really nailing it, design beautiful landing pages that convert more.
Yeah.
And because they said, what do people want? Well, they want landing pages that convert, but they also want beautiful landing pages.
They don't want them to be ugly. Yeah.
They don't want them to be ugly. And they design, and it's concise enough that it incorporates kind of both of those things in there.
Yeah.
So,
and I think too, like, one thing we talk about here is in terms of educating the market on kind of knowing where you need to lead with, because you showed the cure-all picture, which it obviously looked pretty old. That back in the day when medicine was probably relatively new, it was like, you don't need to specify that this Aleve is for sinuses and this Aleve is for back pain. It was a medicine that could help you with things. And so it's really knowing that where your market is at and how specific you need to be for the benefit. So that, I mean, you want to quickly share your example of the body language training?
I do, but Jim has a question here. Why can't they say sell instead of convert? Because that's convert is the language that their customers use. And so that might be a strange word to most people saying, but design beautiful landing pages that sell more. It's not conversion doesn't mean the same thing as sell. And sometimes
it could be a landing page.
It could be a landing page that converts and gets email addresses. It could be but the audience, the kind of person that's looking for this, they want things that convert. And it's a great question, and that's why you know your audience. But I agree with you. If it's the same, use the $3 word over the $10 word.
Yeah.
You know, but this is the language of their audience, and that's very familiar to me, the word convert. But I realize that if you're not in the copywriting world, then the word convert. I think this is the name of this thing. Did we say sell or we say convert?
We said sell.
We said sell. Yeah. But
$5,
basically
$5 word over $10 word. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's keep moving. Okay.
Yeah. Just that sometimes basically you have a benefit in a marketing piece that then sells what you want them to sell. And so last weekend I was doing a training of, I was coaching people on their body language and trying to get people to come out for it. They were clients of a friend. It was through his business, and they're familiar with body language and why it's important. But I know no one's out there saying, I just really want to work on my body language. So I was thinking of how I could get people to come out. So I came up with a subject line. I came up with a few, so I don't remember which one I got to, but one was like how to stand out. So this was men, and it was, how to stand out from other men. And then I educated them on, in this day and age, it's very difficult to stand out, and this is what you're competing against, and this is why, how body language helps you stand out, and this is what it also does, and this is why it's important. And I'm teaching it on Sunday, and sign up, and we filled up the day. Yeah. And I was worried that at the beginning, I was like, I can't, we could just tell people, hey, come for a body language session. No one would show up.
Yeah.
But I've had to educate them.
Body language it could be even a feature, but it's almost like the bridge benefit, right? It wasn't as compelling in that scenario as what the ultimate goal was.
People kind of have this idea that they want better body language, but they won't drop thousands of dollars to get it until they realize that it's tied to them. And this was also, there was a lot of chords in a way, and it was all real stuff. The content was very real, which is your body's signaling things about you that you don't realize. And you're signaling insecurity and you're signaling lack of confidence. And this is how it's read. And when you get rid of those things, you don't have to, I think that I did another one. I did two. What was about what it really means to be yourself. And I sort of positioned against everyone says be yourself. And it's just terrible advice. But what it actually means is when you get rid of all these habits that you have of insecurity and low confidence and feeling like you're rejected all the time, when you get rid of those habits, the self that you show up as is
more attractive,
naturally attractive, and this is how to do it. And I'm offering sessions, and anyway, we filled up the day, which was great. Awesome. People out.
So we're moving on to number 2, and these next 2 will go a lot quicker. It's because that first one, benefit, is huge. It's so huge, and now going back to having people believe your benefit. And so believability is absolutely critical with copywriting, and making your audience believe in what you're selling. And so I know we have a lot of different techniques and mechanisms to share about that. So Zach, I'll let you kind of jump in.
Great. So this is really where the fun stuff comes in. Just trying to think of where to start here. So you have to know a few things about your customer, right? And there are actually 5 dimensions of a customer that you want to know. You want to know who they are. So if it's relevant, gender, age, types of occupation, and there's a lot of people that talk about create a customer avatar and give them a name and that sort of thing. And it could be very broad. I mean, it could be much more, it could be a huge age range, or it might be a narrow age range. You also have to know what they want. That's just what we were talking about. Fears and aspirations, wants and aspirations. And then you have to know what they believe. What do they believe about their problem? What do they believe? Why do they believe that they haven't yet solved it? So again, I want to lose weight, but I got this metabolism thing, whatever, right? What do they know about other solutions? So you have to address that, right? If you're, so if you say, lose my, I'm a personal trainer and I'm going to get you into shape and you come to me, well, who else is offering that? Who else is offering another solution to the same problem? And you have to know what's out there, and that's why kind of market research is important. And the other thing you want to do for a specific piece of marketing is what are they doing right now? And this will make a huge difference, because if they're on Amazon searching for 1 terabyte hard drives, you don't have to lead with, never lose your baby pictures again, right? They're searching for that. They already want it. You just have to explain why yours is superior to the others.
Right.
And this is something that you have to consider, is what's your source of traffic, and what are they, if it's an interruption, if they're on Facebook and they're scrolling through, this is a very different sort of thing that you have to consider. So those are
So just real quick to recap, it's who are they? What do they want? What do they believe? What do they know already about other solutions and options and opinions? And what are they doing right now? So what are they currently searching for? What's the context of them finding your offer? Have they typed it into Amazon, or are they looking for an ad in Google? That mindset of those two customers is very different. Okay, cool. Yeah. What's up? What's next?
So what do they need to believe in order to buy? 3 things. One is they have to believe that your solution works and it'll help.
Right.
They have to believe it works for their specific problem. So within your market, there are people, so let's say it's back pain, right? And they say, well, but does it work for sciatica? Well, but does it work for upper back pain? Yeah, I see this thing about back pain, but this is from an accident and they're talking about chronic. And so you have to address that in your marketing and say, I have this solution for back pain. It really helps. It's good for lower back pain and upper back pain. And maybe even you admit that it's not so great. If this is from an accident, then this is not the solution for you. But if it's chronic back pain that keeps recurring, et cetera, right? You don't overpromise, but make sure you address the market.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are afraid of getting that granular, but it's so important, because I've said this before, if you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. And, by getting really specific about that and calling it out, like calling out the audience, the people that are in that demographic or in that group of customer are going to be like, oh my gosh, finally someone who's speaking my language, someone who actually knows what I need.
Exactly. So their specific problem, and also for them specifically. So again, dating advice, if relationship advice, whatever, if your thing looks like it's geared towards newly married couples in their 20s, and someone's been married for 30 years and they're in their 50s or 60s, they're going to say, okay, this isn't for me. It doesn't speak to me. So actually addressing, it works for people like you. And what do they think it is that's special about them that means it won't work for me? And it's a very common thing of, yeah, that's great, but it won't work for me because my situation's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all like to think we're the exception, but the truth is,
well, we're very frustrated, and people give us advice, whatever our problem is, and people give it advice, and we're like, yeah, but you don't understand. Like, so you're giving me advice on, getting a husband, but, I'm overweight and, I just don't get the attention.
And it's not the same. It's not the same.
And it's not the same as for some, or I'm divorced twice and I'm in my 60s. And yes, if your solution doesn't help them, then you would be clear that it doesn't.
Yeah. And we're going to show a really awesome example of some copy that really calls out the reader well.
Nails that. Exactly. Yeah. And that's, and you can, the great thing about the internet, if you're doing online copy, is you can target people. So when you're talking about your terabyte thing, you can target new mothers, people who have had a baby within the last year or something, and then have a headline that says, don't lose your baby's first steps, or whatever it is. So
what are the ways to increase believability in copy?
Great. So someone's saying repeat those things. They need to know that it works. They need to know it works for their problem and it works for them, their demographic and their solution.
Yeah. And guys, I'm going to be sending out the recording too. So just in the interest of time, rather than, having to keep repeating, we'll make sure you get this recording that you can watch like whenever you want. I just want to make sure we're staying on track with timing. And so don't worry, I will send this out to all y'all.
Cool. So ways to increase believability. Favorite one of mine and Alex's, this is the next thing I nail down after I figure out the benefit, is a unique mechanism. A mechanism means the means by which you're going to achieve the benefit.
Yeah.
So
like, how can I make this easier, faster, better, simpler, more effective? Like, what is the way that you're getting them that benefit that's better than anyone else's?
Exactly. And so to figure this out, you have to look at what is everyone else saying. If everyone else is saying, weight loss is just the one. I never worked in weight loss, but it's just such a one that everyone's seen and they've seen ads. So I would come up, but if somebody wants examples in a different niche, if everyone else is saying, lose weight by dieting, well, you have to position against that, right? Here's why diets don't work. Here's the problem with that. So what is everyone saying and what is it missing, right? So why didn't they get the results? Because if what everyone else was saying was working, if all these other solutions were working, they would have found them already and they would have used them already, right? So here's the missing ingredient. Here's what you're missing. Here's why you didn't get results last time.
Yeah.
So you've been running a business and you're trying to get new customers and you've bought ads and you always spend more on your ads than people that come through your door. Well, the reason for that is targeting. If you don't target your ads, you're wasting money advertising to 99% of the people that are never going to come up. But if you can target, then you can, and then they go, oh, that's why I didn't get the results before.
Yeah.
So mechanism, and finding a good, unique mechanism that delivers your benefit. And so, again, if I saw a yoga studio there, what about this kind of yoga? What do you use? And naming it really helps. Naming it is, again, we talk about this in the video, but P90X, they named it muscle confusion. Yeah. It's a fancy word for we do different exercises on different days.
Yeah.
With that, yeah.
Yeah, George just commented that. Yeah, I think it's so, and that whole, and we'll talk, we talk a bit about that, but they made it really clear, like this is something that you haven't tried before. And think of all the diets. I mean, to really look no further, and that's why weight loss and fitness is so easy to come up with this, because first it was like no carbs, Atkinson's or whatever, right? And then oh no, it's actually high fat. Oh no, it's no sugar. Oh no, it's being in ketosis. I mean, there's so many different, methods or mechanisms that people share, and you can call them fads, you can call them whatever, but people just need to know that there's a different way, because they haven't gotten results yet, so they need to know what that way is.
Well, the funny thing is keto is the latest one, and it's really popular, and that was Atkins 20 years ago. That was,
I know,
this is not
renamed.
It's just renamed. It's just no, you need keto, but
keto,
but
it's not Atkinson's. God, you fool.
It's not Atkins, but it's the one that kind of makes sense to people, that it gives them insight into the problem. So that's key for believability.
Cool. Let's move on to the next one.
Next thing for believability is not a logical way of addressing believability, and it is painting a picture in their head. I say painting a picture when it's visual, but creating a scene in their head of the ultimate benefit that they want. And this is more for a towards pleasure sort of thing, but I guess you do it as well for the nightmare scenario. So if it's debt, right? Get out of debt. So we could paint the nightmare scenario of there's a knock at your door, you're sitting around with your kids, and the humiliation of
a debt collector.
Everyone knowing that, or your card gets declined and the person standing behind you is, your crush, and your card gets declined and they say you have zero balance. The bank has seized your thing because you never paid your debts, right? That visual gets emotional. And then on the other side of it is, again, imagine if you have all the money that you follow the program and you have all the money, and now you can just sit on the beach, You don't have a care in the world, and you're not worried, and you can say no. We talked about saying no to jobs. You know, that's one thing, nice thing about having money is, you know, isn't it nice to be able to say, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not working with that person. I can pick and choose what I do because I have enough money to take care of
And
me.
I talk a lot about painting a picture in a couple of my YouTube videos where I talk about future pacing. And really that's what you're doing. You're getting your viewer, your reader to imagine that they're in the scenario where they've achieved the benefit that you're promising, or to avoid the situation that you're explaining if it's an away from sort of pain related picture that you're painting. But it's so visceral, and you almost need to feel it yourself. You know, I think that's why it's really easy, much easier, I should say, to write copy for an audience that you can relate to, because, you know, if you've been in debt yourself, it's easy to access that feeling and what that feels like. And so I think this is just a really powerful mechanism, a really powerful way to create believability, because by future pacing, the person's actually seeing themselves in that reality. And so they're going to be, you know, it's going to be easier for them to believe it.
Jim's here says, negativity seldom sells well, turns me off. I know what you're saying. Negativity sells very well. The problem is if they don't offer hope before the negativity. So we all want to escape pain, right? So if I start talking about debt and I start with negative, you're going to just click away because I don't want to feel that. But if I start with, hey, there's this loophole, this government program that completely wipes out your debt, see if you qualify, and then I get into the pain, you're going to keep going because you want to get to that solution. Yeah, if that makes sense. But I hear what you're saying. Negativity, a lot of copywriters focus on pain points and they forget people need hope. They need a reason to keep reading this because it's an unpleasant thing.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point to make, that with pain point marketing, it's not about creating pain, it's about creating hope, which can actually be a positive experience, but often the people need to know that you're talking to them, and unless you can speak to their pain, they don't believe that you know, right? And I think that that's more of the explanation. It's not like you're trying to be evil and be like, haha, you're hurting, now buy my shit. It's more like, hey, I know what you're going through. I know what it's like to feel that way, or else they're going to be like, what do you know? They're going to think that they're the exception. They're going to be like, no, you don't, you know, exactly. Lala says empathy. That's totally true.
And it's getting them to face it. That's the thing, is that the moment when they can do something about their problem is now. The moment when it's most salient to them is probably not now. So if you're, you know, in the middle of a date and you don't know what to say to get the conversation interesting, it's too late for you to go back to the computer and buy this program and learn how to have a better conversation. So I have to remind you to face what that feels like and remember what that feels like so that you'll address it. And again, debt's a great example, because you're doing someone a favor. If you can get them on top of their finances, it's not a cruel thing to get them, look, you got to look at this. Like, this is real. This is what could happen. And we're going to help you and you're going to get out of it. And then you have a solution for them.
Yeah, because the caveat to all of that is everything, you know, code of honor, guys, everything we're selling and everything you should be selling should actually be helping people. So, you know, I think what happens is a lot of people get turned off by negativity and copy is because oftentimes there's a lot of shysters out there who are doing really crappy things with their marketing. And that's what gives sort of, you know, good marketing a bad rap. But anyway, let's move on. I could stand on my high horse.
So when you're painting a picture in their head, I think a couple things. Use all the senses and do sight, sound, smell, touch, taste.
Yeah.
What does it sound like? To have what they want? You know, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And, you know, what are the mental processes that are going? You know, the moment that I, you know, got my first check for $35,000, I thought, I don't have to have this feeling in my chest anymore. So what are the thoughts as well? And then use fresh images and metaphors. This is so important. In high school, we had to read this essay by George Orwell called Politics in the English Language, and it just talks about the importance of fresh metaphors. If I say dead as a doornail, you don't see a doornail. You don't see it. I don't even know what a doornail is. It's an empty metaphor. But if I said, you know, he was lying there dead like a sack of flour on the floor, something pops into your head, this image of the deadness of a sack of flour and the weight of it and the you know, the lifelessness of it. Really this is where writing comes in. This is where creativity comes in, and you can think about, you know,
How can I use a metaphor that really lands? Because I think a lot of times writers like to get super creative and they like to use fun innuendo and idioms and sayings, and you have to be careful with that. You know, you have to be careful with that, like, as it is, because a lot of people across different cultures might not know certain idioms that we say, and even from Canada and America, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's not a thing down there. But yeah, I think using analogies that people can really live, like, feel the realness of it. Okay, what is one of the next ways to increase believability?
Right. So you want to confirm existing beliefs. So, you know, again, it depends on your market. But if these are people who believe that, you know, exercise is important for losing weight, or then going too much against their existing beliefs and saying, actually, you know what, you don't need exercise to put on muscle. You don't need exercise to put on muscle. That would be hard for me to believe if you said you don't need exercise to put on muscle. I'd say, yeah, but you're taking a drug or you're using or whatever. Confirming existing beliefs helps, and that's why different markets. I mean, you know, if you know, I'm not in this niche, and I don't have anything to do with this niche, but survivalist companies often, you know, preach to a sort of conspiracy-minded consumer, and so if they say, look, the government is planning this thing and it's happening, and then people are like, oh no, yeah, this makes total sense, I agree with this, nodding. But you also want to violate their assumptions, and the important thing is you only want to violate one assumption or maybe two, but the more you violate, the more okay, this just isn't credible to me. But if it's like, yes, you do need, you know, to eat fewer calories in order to lose fat, but, you know, you don't need to be hungry in order to do that. And here's why. If you eat these foods that fill you up more, then you don't have to have any hunger pains, and you are eating a deficit, but you aren't hungry. You know, that's just sort of top of my head, but confirm it, but also, you know, violate something, because I always assumed cutting calories meant I was going to be hungry. Mm-hmm. And so that's
I love that. Okay.
Congruency is so important. And Alex and I talk about this all the time. This is one of the biggest things I see when people ask me for critique again, apart from selling too early, is they have an ad that says one thing, and then you click on it and you go to a landing page that says something else, and then you go down and their call to action is something else entirely. And if someone clicked on the ad that said, you know, here's how to save, you know, 20% on your next purchase, and then they get to a thing that says, you know, here's the secret they don't want you to know, it's just chances to lose them. Yeah. They already clicked on it. They know what they want. And there's something very believable about a consistent message. Yeah. If you just keep driving that message all the way through from the click to the sale.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I often say, like, as you're working with new clients and projects, is to really look at the context in which you're writing for, because oftentimes someone will just say, oh, I want you to write an ad. It's like, well, where am I sending people? And are you going to be split testing this page? And you know, what does the sales page look like? And knowing the context, because without that, you can write a million different hooks, but then someone's going to click on an ad and get to the landing page. And if the landing page is, you know, like, for example, you could write about like the three things that you're doing that are like killing your relationship, whatever. I just made that up. Then someone comes to the landing page and it says, the number one mistake you should be, and it's like, wait a second, I was about to learn the three things, then you told me about the one thing, and it all could be about the same thing, and you're just trying a different hook, but they're
trying different benefits, and it doesn't work.
Someone, actually, one of my mentors and someone who I really look up to in terms of the marketing world is Roland Frazier, and he always said that when someone clicks your ad, they're actually looking for a reason to leave. They're looking for a reason to not believe you, because there's so much noise out there that if someone's landing on your website, they're actually assuming that they're like, that you're, you know, just one of the many ad, you know, people out there that are trying to get their attention. And as soon as they see something incongruent, they're like, oh, I knew it. They're gone. And whether it happens consciously or subconsciously. So your job as a copywriter marketer is to be able to really create congruency in messaging from the second they click an ad or the second they open an email all the way into the final, you know, whatever it is that you're selling. So that's really, really important. Let's sail through these next few, because I know they're powerful, but they're super easy.
Specificity. There's something more, you know, if I said, you know, 98.1% of doctors, you know, recommend this, or I said 99% of doctors recommend this. 98.1 is more credible. You know,
Yep.
if I said how I made $10,000 a week versus how I made $9,456 in my first week,
Mm-hmm.
right? The more specific it is, the more believable it is. And again, don't make up numbers, but don't round up. A lot of people will round up the number.
Yeah.
Social proof. So testimonials, success stories, before and after pictures, product demonstrations. These are things that you can't neglect because you're trying to increase believability. And they are all tools. And I used to sort of stay away from them and think that I didn't think I bought because of them. So I'd come to a page, I'd say, well, I've never bought because of a testimonial. And then sure enough, I land on a page and there's like a quote from, let's say it's a marketing product that I want to buy. And there's an endorsement from somebody that I know and trust. Not know personally, but I know his work. I go, okay, I'll stick around for another couple minutes because so-and-so endorses this, and that means it's in that family and it's not some scammy nobody that, you know, want to heard of. So they do make a big difference. Scientific proof, if you have something scientific. So when I talked about I don't remember what the mechanism was for the ceramic knives, but they had a special process that was they had chemical engineers and they came up with a special process and here's how it works. And that's part of our proof.
Yeah.
Right. Increasing trust through personal story. So we talked about empathy, but yes, I understand because I've been there. If that is you, if not, a client story, right? So I had a client who was, you know, who had this problem and this was her situation and this is why it was so bad and this was her frustration and she tried everything and then she came to me and this is what we did and this was her success.
Yeah.
Credentials, right? You have a PhD, you have awards, you have, you know, celebrity clients that you've worked with. Like that's huge. I mean, I did a link. I worked for a LinkedIn company that they had this special way of getting into LinkedIn inboxes a while ago. And literally they had gotten into like C-level. So like CEOs of huge, like massive companies like Apple and like that sort of thing. And like client meetings. And so that was a big part of the message I wrote when they're reaching out to prospects is, hey, you know, we help people like connect with C-level entrepreneurs. That looks like kind of the game you're playing. We've gotten meetings for our clients with Apple, Sony, Disney, et cetera, et cetera. If that sounds like something that interests me, huge response rate. This is the best response rate I've ever gotten because that works, you know? And then again, we talked about product demonstration.
Yeah. Do you have that video? Is it a short one?
Let me see. It's not too short, but let me just start it from.
Yeah, because we have a couple of examples to kind of showcase some of these believability concepts that we were just sharing. And hopefully that'll help really sort of drive home the importance of that. And like I said, there's all these different ways that you can create believability. It doesn't mean you need to include every single one of these aspects. I mean, some of them are, yes, of course, like congruency and, you know, specificity if it makes sense, scientific proof if it makes sense, personal story if it makes sense. But the more that you can include these elements into your copy, the more believable it's going to be.
Yeah, and sometimes, again, if you just have a fantastic demonstration of your product, that's all it takes. Let's watch this one real quick. So this is the CEO of the company going into the car.
And it's obviously advertising this glass in the Mercedes. That's crazy.
Right. So.
I mean, he had to be shitting his pants at that moment, but it it just goes to show that, you know, when you have a demonstration, so anytime you're selling it, and I think a lot of, Lala says you couldn't pay me enough. I think a lot of times when people are selling digital products, and I know that this is something that I've thought a lot about, like, oh, how do I demonstrate using a digital product? And a lot of times that can be a bit of a hurdle because obviously with something like that, it seems like a no-brainer. You know, you have bulletproof glass. Look at, we're going to show you. You don't need to sell it. You don't need to say anything else. This is exactly what you're looking for. And this is exactly what solves the problem. But start being creative with ways that you can demonstrate whether it has that level of like Alana says, shock value or not. it's more about putting, you know, your consumer like right there into imagining and believing themselves using the product. And so when it comes to, for example, like a digital offer, there's ways that you might be able to show someone consuming the product and demonstrate what it looks like when you log in and show what people are getting. Because by demonstration alone, you're overcoming a lot of objections that people have in their head about what the product is. And so it's just such a powerful way to create belief.
Yeah, Alana says shock value, and that's part of what gets attention about this video. And that's the thing. If you want bulletproof glass, I want bulletproof glass from the guy who's willing to stand behind it while someone shoots it with an AK-47. Yeah. So I'll take that one. Times. Yeah. No more. I don't need to know the science behind it. Yeah. You know, I don't. Yeah,
I was having flashbacks to the Tesla demonstration. Did you see that where Elon Musk was?
Oh yeah.
He's like, it's break proof glass, and then the glass kind of shattered. He's like, oh, let's try it again, and then it broke again. So like, don't do what Elon did. Make sure you're obviously the glass did shatter. It's pretty funny. But anyway, okay, so let's move on.
I saw an Instagram ad for a netting that stops from your baby going over the balcony. You can find it, and it's just this guy, big guy, runs and jumps up the balcony and gets caught by the net, and then you see it, you know, the high rise, and it's like, okay, he stands behind his product. That's pretty dramatic. Yeah. It's a form of believability. So keep that in your toolbox.
And why that's so important, guys, too, because if you're starting to write copy for a client, you might want to ask them, do you have any examples or footage or anything that demonstrates case studies, anything that shows this product in use and in demonstration? Because, you know, we said this before, but when you have all of these elements, and a lot of it isn't about you having to create it as the copywriter. Like, I think there's this misconception that us as copywriters have to just magically pull all of these things out of our asses. And no, hopefully you're working with a brand that can provide some help to you and say, oh yeah, look, we do have these, you know, credentials. This is the authority we have. This is how many followers we have, whatever they can give you, so that all you're doing is weaving it into the copy in a really, you know, beautiful way that makes your job a whole hell of a lot easier to sell, if you're just using what your client or, you know, what you have in your business. So I think that's just an important thing.
I think that's one thing, is it's not that copywriters are it's a creative and you're going to you do the research, you look at your program and you dig through it. And what I found most of the time when I'm working on someone else's business is they have all these elements. They're just buried somewhere in the product, somewhere in the thing. And I go through their website and I'm like, on page 3 of your About Us page, you mentioned this thing. Tell me about that. And they're like, oh yeah, I was like, that's the headline. Like that's what you need to lead with. And you need to sort of draw people in with, and that your ads should be centered around that, because you're mentioning it as this little aside.
Absolutely.
So okay, so moving on. Do we let me see if I have some. Let's just move on to attention. And
let's move on to that. We can include, what I'll do along with the video is send out some of the examples so everyone can take a look at them. Just want to be mindful of time here. So attention, number 3.
Okay, so you're clear on your big promise. You know the tools to make it believable. Obviously, you have to do 2 things with their attention. You have to grab it and get their attention in the first place. And then you need to hold it for the length of your sales message, because the sales message, in order to paint that picture in their head and use all these tools of believability, you need to hold their attention. And when I say hold, it's actually a re-engagement. You don't hold their attention, you grab it and you re-grab it and you re-grab it and you re-grab it. And that's just a matter of technique. There's just tools to do that. And so, grabbing is about interrupting. So what gets attention? Basically, so there's kind of 2 kinds of attention, and there's a lot of talk about how attention spans are getting smaller, and there are 2 kinds of attention. One is active attention. It's something you choose to pay attention to, where your prefrontal cortex is saying, okay, zero in on this. And this is when you're reading something boring. It's really working hard. Doing homework or whatever. You're saying, all these things that are pulling at my attention, I'm going to filter them out and pay attention to this. That's the kind of attention that people are struggling with. Then there's passive attention, which is attention that's pulled into something. And people will sit there and watch a 2-hour movie, 3-hour movie, 30-minute TV show without losing their attention, because it's being pulled. So this is what you want to do with your copy. And the things that pull attention are, so novelty, it's got to be different, new. We evolve. We just don't pay attention to things. You walk the same way to work every day, and you don't go, hey, there's the same car I saw yesterday parked there. Oh my God, that house was there yesterday. It's only when something changes that we notice it. And then, is it a threat or an opportunity? And those are the two things. We talked about this a little bit already when we talked about benefits. But is this a threat, something I need, danger, better pay attention, or hey, this could make my life better? Okay. So did you want to talk about your hot headline formula, or you have a video on it?
No, let's keep moving.
Okay. So basically what we're talking about here is what we call open loops. And this is an industry term, kind of a well-known thing, but basically you are opening a door and then you're not quite satisfying it. And you're creating the sense of, okay, I want to know what happens next. And great, if you read like mystery writing, or Lost is a great example. The TV show Lost was famous for, it opens a storyline and then it doesn't resolve it before it opens another storyline, opens another, and then it resolves the first. But by the time it has, 2 more storylines have opened up, and you keep going and you keep going,
right.
and going. And there are a lot of techniques for this, and I'll show you some slides later. But one is simply just previewing. So when we learned to write essays in high school, they said, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That first part is important, so people feel like, and we did it on this webinar, we said, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to teach you about promises, we're going to teach you about believability, and we're going to teach you about attention, and we're going to, and so you say, okay, I'll stick around for that. So that's the preview. And it could be, again, if your industry is losing credibility, and I made a video recently that I said, in the next 30 seconds, I'm going to teach you this. And then I put a little stopwatch and a little countdown timer, because a lot of people in that industry had said, hey, in a minute, I'm going to tell you this. And then they broke the promise. And this way it held me to the promise, and I of course delivered on it. But, I had to find a way to get people to believe that when I say I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to, because that the industry had just broken so much trust with that.
Absolutely.
It really makes me mad. So in a moment, you're going to learn this, in less than 30 seconds, I'm going to reveal this. So it's just a preview. I'm going to tell you this in a second.
Yep.
What's the secret to copywriting? Tell you in a minute. So that's a preview. Stories. We are wired to pay attention to stories because they have inherent survival value, right? We learn something from them. We learn better how to navigate the world. Even if it's a fictional story, our brains are wired. There's a great book called Wired for Story, how we are just hardwired to pay attention when a story is well told. So the things that I'm going to talk about are actually storytelling techniques that I use in my marketing all the time. And one is called foreshadowing, right? And I have actually, I think I will read this because it's just too good a demonstration. So this is an article that I think someone posted on Facebook a few years ago, but I always remembered it. It's from 2013. I'll just read it to you now. I felt like Will Smith, an enemy of, the headline is One Woman's Dangerous War Against the Most Hated Man on the Internet. Okay, so open loop. Which woman? Who's the most hated man on the internet? What kind of war? Okay, I want to know more. And then she starts, I felt like Will Smith, an enemy of the state. I was being hunted, harassed, and stalked by criminals with technological expertise. I'd been thrust into an unexpected war. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and alone on the front line. I'd awoken a hideous network of villains and saboteurs who were in pursuit of me, hoping to ruin my life. I'd received creepy emails, backlash on Twitter, and 3 death threats. My computer had been bombarded with viruses, and the technician had advised me to buy all new equipment because the malware was tough to remove. Also, the leery of unusual cars or vans in the neighborhood, the tech added. Okay. If you don't know what happens next, you're there's something I don't know how I could not keep reading, and I ended up reading this very, very long article. It's about 10 pages, and I read every single word of it because, and I'll tell you quickly what it's about, is revenge porn, which is where someone leaks someone's nudes onto a certain site, and it's illegal. And this woman, her daughter's nudes got leaked, and she was fighting, and the guy who owned the site was doxing her, and Anonymous came to her rescue and found out who this guy was, and then the FBI got involved. And
like whole like crazy. But when you first
Yeah.
read that though, that could have been used to sell anti-spy software on your computer. I mean, if you think about that story, which is a true story, and it's a content piece, it's a blog post, but I think as copywriters, you can get a lot of valuable insight from reading content online and reading other people's stories. Because if you were, say, selling some sort of software for a computer that keeps your photos safe or whatever, and I mean, obviously I don't know the details of the story, but I know a lot of copywriters that'll use real life stories that have happened to other people as ways to lead into their copy, and it's really, really powerful. And so I think
you can ask your people, say, look, you're selling this this private, privacy, locks down your computer, no intruders, whatever. Do you have any stories from clients that had came to you after they got hacked, and what was their story, and did they mind me using it, or I can disguise their name and use a similar thing, and you tell the story, and people and then boom. Because what happens in stories is we draw conclusions from them, and we feel like we came up with it ourselves. So we're listening to this, and you're thinking, oh God, I should get antivirus software. Like if that was the consequence, if that was a thing of, okay, she got hacked, and you start thinking, yeah, you know what? It's probably a good idea to make sure that your computer's secure.
Yeah.
And then when the solution's presented, you've already had the idea that you want it, and it makes sense. So that's foreshadowing. I used a line I was telling a story in a video sales letter, and I used the line, something bad happens, and I'd say, it was the second worst day of my life. The worst came 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
And then no one stopped watching, until I say what the worst day was, and you set it up. So that's a foreshadowing. Asking a rhetorical question. So again, mid-sales copy, you say, how do celebrities get in shape for a role, right? Right? What is it about doorbells that make dogs, you want your dog to stop barking? Have you ever stopped to ask, what is it about doorbells that make a dog stop to bark? Well, I'm going to answer that question for you.
Right.
So you can get a doorbell that your dog can, frequency, whatever. Right? Why is it so hard? So you ask a question, and then this is similar to the preview, but you're basically setting up the question that you're going to answer in a moment. Great. So the cliffhanger, right? Using cliffhangers. Again, I used one in the dating niche for women was she was seconds away from getting dumped. That's the first opening line. And I set up the scenario of, they're about to have this conversation, and little does she know he's about to drop the hammer.
Right.
And, then something changed when and the other one was, if he looked over, we're both dead. And it's a cliffhanger. I gotta know what happens next. Another open loop is the mysterious relationship, right? What does this thing have to do with this thing you care about? Usually it's some what can Genghis Khan teach you about dog training? And you're like, oh, weird. Let me figure that out, right?
What can this pineapple teach you about changing your life? It's like, what? I don't know.
Yeah.
Bria, was rhetorical question, the one you missed, by the way. I just typed in the chat.
Rhetorical question.
But that's a really good one. I love that one. Okay, we got 2 more.
What does toothpaste have to do with weight loss? You're like, what? Am I using the wrong toothpaste? Is that why I'm not losing weight?
There's a toothpaste that can make me lose weight? Oh my God, I must know what
exactly.
this is.
So what does this thing have to do with this thing? This became a real formula in the video sales letter thing for a while, but and the warning is good, so you got a yoga studio, and you're saying, our yoga studio teaches this thing, which is scientifically backed, which is, if you're back, I should warn you, if you do back bends in the wrong way, it can cause irreversible damage to your hips, and I don't want that to happen to you. So make sure you read the rest of this thing to make sure you're not hurting yourself when you're doing it. Yeah. Okay. So there's a little sort of trail of breadcrumbs you're leaving, all of these things. And what I'll do is I'll read copy, and then I'll say, I feel like I'm starting to lose focus here myself as I read it. So I'll I need to put in a little preview here. I need a little open loop before this, because I'm going to get into this next section, and I feel like, so for example, when I talked about that, thing with the stopwatch in the corner, I said, they don't know who I am, and they don't know if I have credibility. So, but if I come on and say, hi, my name's so-and-so, and let me tell you about my background in dating and relationships and advice, who's going to want to sit through 20 seconds of that? But if I say, in 30 seconds, I'm going to teach you this secret that you want to know about, here we go. But first, you should know a little bit about me. This is my background. This is where I came from. And then ping, 30 seconds. Okay, here's the secret.
Yeah. Just as long as, and this is a big one, you said this, just as long as you're actually then delivering on those promises and closing the loops, because the difference between opening a loop and not delivering is just clickbait, right? And so you never want people to feel like duped, bait and switched. It's about really crafting an open loop in the sense that you're keeping them interested in continuing to read or to watch, but it's
just open up another one, right? That's the key, is that deliver on it, but open up another one. And from a conversions perspective, people that do this open loop but never close it thing, it does work, but it destroys the trust of the consumer. And over time, and you won't believe what happens next. That phrase is banned from Facebook. Like if you create an ad and you say, she met her bully, you won't believe what happens next. That literal phrase, it was so effective at opening a loop that everyone used it. No one delivered on it, and it got banned from. You get spanned. It's.
I think of creative ways to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a pretty healthy amount of techniques for all of those things.
I love that. And I mean, I know we kind of, we were talking really high level about this, guys, but truly those are the three things that if you can figure out how to use big promise, believability, and attention, and truly understand these foundational principles, that is what sets amazing, highly paid, highly sought after copywriters apart from just sort of average copywriters. And in a couple minutes, we're going to open up the lines for questions, and we'll get to some of the questions here that I saw a couple of you leave. And we're super excited about this because it's really going to be our chance for you to see how these principles are put into action and can be applied in copy, maybe even in your specific niche. And before we get to Q&A, I know these principles, you might be wondering okay, yes, I get it. Big promise, attention, believability, but when and how do I actually use these, apply these in my copy, and in what order do I use them? Because there's something that I think everyone and all copywriters need to know, and it's something that takes kind of time to get, is that sequence matters. And it matters because copywriting is selling, and buying on the other end of that, right, as a consumer, is a process. It's an emotional experience, right? So you're taking, you as a copywriter, it's your job to take a buyer from, I've never heard of this person before, right, which is obviously where skepticism is high, to let me take out my credit card and buy, which is where trust needs to be created. And so if you really think of that as emotional roller coaster from attention to conversion, and you need to know where to insert these techniques that are going to be able to guide your audience and navigate this emotional response and these real emotions that you want them to have. So I know I have my own formulas and frameworks, and they've truly taken me, I'm not gonna lie, probably 10 years to create and master in my particular niche. But it can be really tricky to figure out. I won't lie, it can be really tricky to figure out sort of what these formulas are, and especially if you're just getting started, because a lot of people will tell you, oh, you can reverse engineer this copy, and you can, and I've done that, and I've gone through sales pages and been like, what are they doing here? What were they trying to say here? How can I say that same thing but in a different way? But it's hard to do because if you're not a trained marketer and copywriter, these sequences and these frameworks are invisible to you, right? You're
a lot of people early on, they'll copy the wording and they'll just insert their own things, and they don't understand the sequence.
Exactly. And you can, you can do that, but really that's just copying someone else's work. And so I highly recommend handwriting people's sales copy because it kind of gets you into that flow, but it's time consuming, and it's ultimately not going to get you to understand these principles in a way that's applicable. And this might, sound familiar. If you're reading a piece of copy online, you might be like, I know that copy is good, but I have no idea why. It flows seamlessly and I'm hooked and I feel like I probably want to buy this, but I don't actually know why. And so I think you're really trying to figure out how do copywriters kind of go in there with this similar thing, follow these frameworks and make it work. And, I know when I write something, I have a template that I refer to for mostly everything. And I think as you get better at copywriting, it becomes a little bit more second nature. I don't need to look at an email template every time I go to write a piece of copy. But if I'm experiencing writer's block in any capacity, it makes the whole process a whole lot easier to have these templates. And I know many of you have been asking for it. Yvonne, examples, we need examples. He was one that was yelling at me in the comments on my YouTube video. But you guys have been asking me for templates and step-by-step guidance. And, you know, let's be honest, at the end of the day, techniques are great. But in order to really use them, you need a system and a method, and you need to be told what to do first and second and so on to create that, you know, high converting copy that we're talking about and make sales, and ultimately be able to become a copywriter that can charge the rates that Zach and I charge. And so now many of you know that I have a copywriting program coming out in January, but it's coming out in January, so I can't offer that to you now. But I was chatting with Zach, and we wanted to be able to give something to you guys now. And of course, you know, as a copywriter, doing a webinar and not having just something that I think you would find incredibly valuable would seem like a silly move. And so we actually found something that I think is incredibly valuable. Would you guys be interested in hearing about it? It's going to be literally a couple minutes, but it's truly game changing. So type in the chat if you're curious to hear about sort of what I have to share with you guys. Awesome. Yes. Okay. So, which is really crazy. Mark, actually, we talked about, are you kidding me? You guys are awesome. Are you yelling at me again, Yvonne?
What is this, an open loop? Kill me.
Just yelling. So Mark Ling, he was on the call earlier, which is pretty awesome. And he was on, he's a really great friend of both Zach and I. And he's sort of like a god in the internet marketing industry. I've known him for literally ever. Zach has a business with him. He's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's a phenomenal copywriter. He has multiple 7-figure businesses in multiple niches. We're talking like affiliate marketing, personal development, dating, like a couple others totally unrelated niches that I've like never even heard of, I swear. But he has
just in mild conversation, I'll sometimes mention like, oh, you know, have you ever created an app? And he's like, oh yeah, I had the #1 app on the App Store for 3 months back in, you know, 2010 or something like that. And literally that was one. It was like $30,000 a day for an app that he had.
Bree says, is he the Affilorama guy? Yes. He is.
Yes.
And he's a Kiwi, he's Kiwi accent, and he's truly like nicer than, like, to say he's nicer than Canadians, he really is. But he has this incredible software, and it's called Copy Assistant. And if you can believe it, it is a software, not AI, because you guys know how I feel about AI. I truly don't believe robots will ever replace us copywriters. Maybe that's just some self-preservation here. But we're actually going to show you the software like in just a hot second. But it's so cool that it gives you high converting templates and frameworks for multiple different forms of copywriting, like emails, headlines, sales pages across multiple different niches. So essentially, it helps you apply and integrate everything that we just talked about on this webinar, the brand promise, the attention, the believability, but into proven copy formulas. And then he has a training that goes along with it. And Zach, why don't you, while I kind of keep going, why don't you just share your screen quick and show a couple of the templates, like the lead-in.
This is so cool.
It's the coolest thing.
So this is, I went into because there's other things to this program, and Mark's beautiful face is back there. But so basically he's got things about headlines, why listen to me. He's got videos, bullet points. I just want to show them the software because that's kind of the coolest part.
Yeah, so, like the formulas.
So bullet points. So he's got a generator here. And basically, so this is really, again, fantastic for writing writer's block. But here he has a whole bunch, and it's basically a, you know, how to eliminate blank problem. You know, the real secret to, the shocking reason why, 5 simple steps. There's just like, it goes on and on and on. You click on each one, and it basically is Mad Lib style, you know, insert benefit here, you know, insert niches, description of programs. There's some for, there's photography, dog aggression training. He has examples.
Yeah.
So that was, what was that? Bullets.
That was like also one tiny little piece of this software. And I wish we had more time. We could take you through all the other cool things this does. But honestly, I mean,
I just want to, just very quickly, he's got a sales copy checklist, which is pretty cool here. So there's like the 7, you know, here's the attention and with, you know, story and mini mechanisms and all, making sure you hit all these points.
Right.
There's one for email. This is, and if you're a freelancer, if you're interested in freelancing, you know, going to a business and saying, hey, do you need any copy? is not going to get you very far. If you have a package and you say, hey, I'll do a 5 email sequence. So I notice when people opt into your site, you don't have an autoresponder sequence. Autoresponder is emails.
Right.
He's got literally sequences in here. Series 1, email 1, here's the thing, email 2, and you can literally copy, insert there's Mark there.
But yeah, you copy it. I mean, guys, just imagine like the power of that, right? You copy it, you can tweak it a few things. If you're looking to bring on new clients, you basically have templates that, I mean, I don't recommend copying word for word, but talk about giving you a leg up, right? And I was so blown away when I saw this. Like I've been friends with Mark forever, and I didn't even know he had this product. And when he told me about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really think my audience would love this. And he agreed because he's a very nice guy. I see Naomi says this product is $500, right? Yes, it is. But he's actually going to give it to everyone in my community for $250 for a very limited time. So if you go to alexcattoni.com/VIP, you'll know that you're there because it has a little photo of Mark and I. But yeah, I mean, he's offering it at a 50% discount just for the next couple of days. And Bree says, take my money. That's amazing.
I love that.
But you guys can go get your hands on this. There's, you can read more about what's included. I am very, very serious about who I recommend to you guys. You probably have noticed I'm a total perfectionist, and I only like to produce the highest quality training for you. And honestly, Mark is one of those people that he's so brilliant, and he's such a generous guy that I know he put his heart and soul into this, and his team is incredible. So let's actually go through some of the bonuses that he's throwing in too for my peeps. If we scroll down.
So this is the sales page here, which is also good for you guys to see. So you get the software with all the templates, all the checklists, copywriting, and step-by-step training. Yeah. This is pretty cool. Full 3-day copywriting conversions private event. So I actually spoke at that event. So I'm in this program. Alex was invited to speak, but she was not in town. She was
traveling the world. I was in Italy, probably.
Jet setting. Yeah, she was in Italy. But this is really cool. And there was this one, overcoming the 11 most common objections. So this was a great talk. I talk about attention hooks, and I have a sort of more detailed sort of way to keep people's attention throughout video and that sort of thing. Secrets of story selling. How to script a video sales letter. So video, yeah. So there's content. So it's not just, you're not kind of left in the dark. And a private mastermind Facebook group, invitation to our monthly coaching, our workshops. And yeah, so if you scroll down here, $249.95. Oh, and Alex actually has a really cool bonus for you guys.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about this right before we started this webinar. Here's what I'm going to do too. If you buy this program right now, I will put this full price, $249.95, towards my coaching program that's launching in January. So if you wanted to join my program or were thinking about it, hopefully you were, you basically are going to get this for free because I'm going to discount the $249.95 off the price of my program. So, and that's just because I want to encourage as many of you to get this, to get sort of that leg up, because it's going to help you even get more out of my coaching program. And so that's just a little thing that I'm offering just to those of you on this webinar right now. So again, you can go to alexcattoni.com /VIP so that you can go and grab your copy of that. And now, you guys, the time has come for Q&A. So don't be shy, guys. If you have a question that you want to ask live on the webinar, do raise your hand, or you can type it in the chat. Harmeet asks, is it US dollars or Canadian dollars? It's US dollars, because Mark's not in Canada. Mark's out in Canada. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions here. Tayab asks, how is copy different from conventional commercials or marketing content on TV? They're not always genuine. People trying to sell things, even misrepresenting facts. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, copy is all of that, and it's about making sure that you're writing copy for brands and businesses and products that you believe in. I mean, I think that is honestly the most important thing, no matter what, right? You give someone the tools to sell something, you give someone the tools to do anything, and there's always going to be the people out there who misuse them. And so it's really about being authentic and genuine in your marketing. Um,
Yeah, it's a tool, right? It's a tool for persuading people, and a lot of people use it. And but you can stay a step ahead of them, you know? So as you said, Alex and I see a lot of people not keeping their promises. And then you can call that out in your marketing and say, hey, you know, you've probably seen one of these videos before. The person says, I'm going to teach you the 3 magic words that make you rich. And then they don't give you any words. So this is going to be different. Here's why. You
mhm.
know, so you can position against that. But the bottom line is people, you know, when people cross ethical lines, they become easier and easier to cross. And so you do see this, you know, we see it at conventions and that sort of thing. We see people whose only thing is like, how do I liberate people's money from their bank accounts and put them into mine? And everything's fair game, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Susanna asks, you mentioned that you met at an industry event. Could you recommend some good events to get started? I mean, I definitely recommend Traffic and Conversion Summit. I know a couple of those of you have asked me about events before, and Traffic and Conversion Summit is a big conference. It's hosted by Digital Marketer. It happens in San Diego. It's a really great foundational place to get started. Absolutely. Do you have any other? I mean, that's where we met.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the one. That's the only one that I try and make an effort to go to. And it's half for the content and half for the seeing people like you and
Yeah, it's
other
totally, because
people in
then
the
you meet so
industry.
many friends in the industry, which honestly, guys, like a lot of you are talking about, um, a lot of you are talking about, how to get clients and stuff like that. I mean, there are ways that you can do it online, obviously, but getting out there, going to meetups, going to workshops, even if you live in another country where there's no Traffic and Conversion Summit, there are businesses all over the world that need copywriters, and getting out there and rubbing shoulders. And I mean, that the same way of getting clients that existed 50 years ago, 100 years ago, a million years ago still exists today. And that's how that's how I met everybody and started my
Yeah.
business, was going to events and meeting people. So I really highly recommend that. Naomi asks, any events within Vancouver area? Definitely. Naomi, you can DM me on Instagram, and I can, get back to you with a couple of things and recommend a couple
And
of local businesses for you.
Matt Estefan and Web Friendly, he has a meetup. I think he used to
Yeah.
anyway, once a week, and lots of good people there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Yvonne, how do I get started? How do I get my work out there? So yeah, I mean, Yvonne, you're just getting started. And I think, obviously you're in the right place. You get started by getting started. You study, you go to events, you write copy, even if you're not writing for a client that you already have. It's just about building the experience, and then being able to get to that point where you can start approaching clients. And even if you're doing free work for a while, I know it's not ideal, but if it's a brand that you really jive with and you want to get in the door with, don't be afraid to really lead with that value first.
You can build a portfolio like that. I mean, I don't suggest working for free if you can find something where if there's some payment, even if it's not monetary payment, but just say, hey, I noticed that your gym isn't doing email marketing. I'm a specialist in email marketing. What if I gave you, 10 emails? Could you give me personal training sessions in exchange? And now you have a portfolio of, here's some emails I, wrote for this gym, and et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think too, my copywriting program that's launching in January, I'm going to actually walk you through sort of the key conversion assets, and how to write a sales page, landing page, ads, emails, and all of that ultimately will become your portfolio. And so, that's something that hopefully will help with building your portfolio. Also, a lot of the templates and examples in Mark's program that, I mean, guys, I highly recommend you get your hands on it, because you're not going to see it at that price probably ever again. And those are honestly, for someone to give you the template, I mean, talk about a way to get started. And then being able to reach out, like Zach said, to business owners in your area to say, hey, look, would you be willing to pay me, $20 an email for this 10 email autoresponder? Here you go. I would have a very hard time believing that every single business would say no to that. So it's kind of a mixture of starting and then putting yourself out there.
critiques are good too. If you go to a website and say, hey, I noticed that, there are there's 5 things on your website that little changes you could make that would bring you more customers. Are you interested in talking about it? Yeah. And then you can come down and you can give them a free, walk through and demonstrate that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in a meeting, I just said to a business owner, they'd been running a business forever. And I was like, why, what benefit do you offer that no one else offers? And if not, what mechanism are you delivering it by? And they're like, we've never thought about that before. That's a good question.
Yeah.
And then they really wanted to work with me because I'd shown it's their business and they haven't even thought of it before. So
yeah, absolutely. So Bree says, if we're already on the wait list for your VIP course, will you still honor the $249 if we purchase Mark's software? Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you're already on the wait list, yeah, totally. So if you join my program when it launches in January and you bought Mark's program, absolutely, I'll honor that. No problem. Any other questions, Jordan?
Someone said, how long should a sales letter be? I said 10 pages. The 10 pages was a story. That was a news article, or just an article on Jezebel.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer to that, and I know this isn't the answer you want to hear because you want to know the magic word, that it's as long as it needs to be, honestly. Yeah. I mean, there are sales pages that, like, look at that demonstration video. How long do you think that sales page was? Could have been just a headline, and a click here to order your bulletproof glass. So it really is as long as it needs to be. There's no cut and dry rule. If you need to do a lot of education on your market because your market's unaware of a certain belief that you want them to have, you might need to do a little bit more convincing. If there's a lot of doubt and skepticism in your market, you might need to include more social proof and scientific proof. There is no cut and dry answer. It's like reading a story. What's the ideal length for a book? I don't know. As long as people want to read it.
It's as long as it takes to get them to hit all these buttons and produce believability, and that requires time. And so I have videos. Some of my best converting videos they're between 35 and sometimes 45 minutes of someone landed on this page not expecting to watch a video, and 40 minutes later they're still sitting there and they pull out their credit card. And keep in mind, not everyone's going to sit through the video, but if you get 2% of people stick through, they can't not buy. Like, the people that sit through it, they all buy. And if you're getting a 2% conversion rate, that's good. Like, you can make good money if you send 1,000 people and you make 20 sales, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think templates are really helpful. Is you just, there's an intro, and then there's curiosity, and then there's a section for the preview, and then I get into my story. And then from the story, I go into the teaching section. And from the teaching, I go into the product creation. And then I present the program. And after the program, this is very formulaic, but it's, program, and then bullets and what they get. And then it's the pricing, and it's the guarantee, and it's literally a structure that, don't worry about it being too long that people won't read. Just worry about it rambling and losing them. If you use these open loops, as I said, you can write incredibly long copy, and people will read it. There's a famous copywriting story of, I don't remember the names of the people involved because they were obviously famous back in the 50s whenever this was written, but it's Alex and Zach, and Alex and Zach are having an argument about long sales messages versus short. And Zach says short's better, and Alex says long's better. And Alex says, I could write, it was newspapers back then. He's like, I could write a full newspaper sized ad, and it'll be all typed, no pictures, and I guarantee you would read every word of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, go ahead. And she's like, I don't even have to tell you what's written. I'll just tell you the headline. I said, okay. And she says, this page is all about Zach Browman.
Mm-hmm.
Because we love to read about ourselves. I'll read every word, of course. You have a newspaper article about me. So when you are identifying your customer and talking about them and telling a story, even if the story's about you, they feel like it's about them. It's, this is such a parallel to my experience.
Well, and that's the biggest.
They will read every word.
Yeah, most important lesson. The most powerful word in copywriting, other than free, is you. And I think you don't want people don't care about you. They care about them and what's in it for them. And so as much as you can make something
your
mom
reader, cares about you and stuff.
Nobody cares.
Your mom.
So Amit says, should we charge for critique? So I think that was in regards to your comment about, offer critiques. And I charge for critiques, but if you're just getting started and looking for clients, I would say no, but you're not going and doing this full critique. You could do, like Zach said, you go and you look at your ideal clients, come up with 10 to 20, maybe 50 companies that you're like, I could write copy for that brand, and go see, I noticed there's like 5 things that they could be doing better on their landing page. Send an email, give them a couple pieces of value in advance, not asking for anything. It really is about this leading with value first, and I think in today's day and age, there's so much noise that, like, if you send an email saying you should hire me, everyone's gonna be like, no, go away. I think it needs to be personable. It needs to lead with value, and you might have to do a few different landing page audits, but then one of those people are going to be like, holy crap, this guy really knows what he's talking about. So.
Oh, great question from Bree, who has also had a glass of wine. Oh, hold on a second. Says, I have to go, unfortunately, but I will look at the recording. I will buy the product. You guys are awesome. Thanks for this. Thanks, Asa.
Oh, thanks, Asa.
Bree says, as copywriters, are we expected to provide graphics or have expertise in Photoshop to provide images along with our copy? Short answer is no. Copywriters do copy and then they send it to the designer. But if you know a designer, or you want to, you can go on Udemy or something and take a course on how to use WordPress, and you can offer an all-in-one solution. That's for some business owners, if that's what you want to do. So let's say you want to work with restaurant, or let's say you want to work with dentists, if you can go in and say, hey, there's a problem with your website, it's partially, like, I know a lot about design. I know about conversion-centric design, and in fact, design supports copy and part of congruence and that sort of thing. So I like getting my hands into design because it's not just rewriting the words, but I'm not good at Photoshop. It's not my area of expertise, but if I'm working with someone, I can point them in the right direction. And again, if you partner with someone, say we offer all-in-ones, they'll do all the graphics, they'll do all this thing. I write all the copy, and it's a good offer. But yeah, short answer is no, you don't have to. But if you can offer it, you might.
Well, and I think too, like, one of the things I love, and this is similar to the video I produced recently on the side hustles that you can do on top of a copywriter, is what you might not realize is, once you get so skilled at what you do, you can be just a copywriter like me. Like, I'm just a copywriter. You don't get me involved in all that other stuff. But when I was first getting started, I did a lot of project management. I did offer additional skills. I could even do some like basic video editing. And a lot of that was because if I did a VSL and knew that I could actually just send them a final video as opposed to like a written script that then someone on their team would have to produce, and it was only going to be a little bit more work on my end, but provide way more value to them, then go ahead and do it, right? I like to provide, even now with my clients, I love to provide layout guidelines, because I think the thing you'll realize as you start writing is you have already an idea in your head of how it's going to look on the page, and then a client will implement it, and you'll see the page and you'll be like, oh, that's not what I expected. And I guess I should have told them what I expected, but that doesn't look as good as I thought. And so I'll really try to add some notes. Like, I'll put copy in a Google Doc and I'll add comments and say, I visualize this being, next to an image like this. And I'll even pull examples from Shutterstock or something to give them that guidance, because nothing, imagery needs to support the messaging and vice versa. And oftentimes, a lot of people are just looking for copy and they think copy is going to fix everything. But especially if you're telling a story or trying to showcase an emotion, having an image that you can pair with that's going to more powerfully bring your copy to life, then I think you should absolutely give guidance, but you don't have to. I hope that answers your question, Bree. Do we have any more questions? I know we had a few come in there pretty quick. I hope we didn't miss any. If we missed any, please let us know. Bree says, yes, thank you.
Thanks, Bree.
Is that Mick? Is that your name, Mick? It's cut off. How is your course in January structured? Any sneak peeks? It will not be a year long. Michael, there we go. Your name was hiding from me for a second. Michael. Oh, Michael, I've gotten your emails. Yeah. It's going to be an 8-week program. So it's going to be very, very hands-on, very much, doing kind of once a week training with then another Q&A call. There's going to be a lot of sort of live critiquing, feedback, all of that. So it's going to be about 8 weeks, maybe 9, sort of with an intro Hopefully that answers your question. So guys, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for staying on. Again, I'm so grateful to all of you and just for your support truly while I've been growing my channel, and just for you guys showing up and being here with us tonight. It really means the world to me. Zach, thank you
My
for
pleasure.
being here and sharing your wisdom with the Copy Posse. Honestly, you just have so much experience in so many different niches, and I just value everything that you have to share. One last time to everyone listening, to get your hands on Mark's course, go to alexcattoni.com/VIP. That discount is not going to be there for long, so once it expires, it's gone. So I highly recommend you go check it out. You're going to get your hands on a lot of incredible templates that many people probably would not be willing to share with so many people. So thanks to Mark for making that available to all of you guys. And you guys are so sweet. Thank you, Yvonne.
Such nice comments. Thanks, everyone. You're making me smile. Oh, yeah, Yvonne yelling. Keep your voice down. This
awesome.
webinar.
Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for the love. And I will see y'all on YouTube on Wednesday. And Zach, I'll see you next time you're in Vancouver.
Bye.
Bye.